Hello, everybody. Welcome back into MedStar Capitals Iceplex for a very special Rink Report Live. That is Mike Vogel, John Walton. I am Katie Florio. And in case you guys aren't sick of talking to us enough, here we are, a new show with you two, who we all see quite often. So thanks, guys, for being here today. It should be fun.
It should be fun. You got 6 weeks here in the regular season and a lot of things still to talk about, Katie. And Vogues, as Calgary comes in tonight, hey, listen, let's do a show. Let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, we're putting the band back together, Johnny, so let's go.
Let's do it.
Well, I want to start with, of course, trade deadline week, because the Capitals certainly made some waves with the departures of Nick Dowd and John Carlson. And now that the team has had a weekend, a game under their belt to kind of process those two leaving this locker room, how do you feel the momentum, the mojo goes from here? Because, yeah, that was 2 hard losses for this team, but there's still a big chunk of an important part of the season left in front of them.
I mean, for me, Katie, it's about the pivot, right? I mean, as you come into the game against the Flames this evening, you had an emotional end of the week. And even hitting the ice, I thought, folks, for the first time in Boston, you're going out, you don't see number 74 in warm-up. He's not in the locker room with these guys. But now that you've had a few days to process, you've got a couple of new guys coming in, I'm anxious to see how they will put it together tonight against Calgary with a new crew.
Yeah, absolutely, Johnny. I think, you have to pause and look back at last week. It was rare to take 2 pieces like that out of your lineup on consecutive days. And so it's a lot to process. The Carlson trade, that has only happened 4 times now in NHL history, where a guy that was drafted by a team, spent 17 years in that organization, and then was traded. You're talking about Ray Bourque, Brian Leetch, Patrick Marleau, John Carlson. That's a short list. And we said the Nick Dowd deal was the closest. The most recent comparable was Brooks Light getting traded to Toronto just over 10 years ago. So these are
both pretty seismic.
That was the word I was going to use too. Seismic. Absolutely. But like you say, you got to move on. You got 18 games now left in this season. You've got Timothy Liljegren in here. You've got David Kampf in here. Those 2 guys, ostensibly, I mean, they play the positions of the 2 players that left D.C. So we'll see them. We won't see them tonight, but we'll be seeing them. So.
I think Tom Wilson said it best, and Tarek and I touched on this in our trade deadline show on Friday as well. He said, hey, there might have been some guys in that locker room on Friday that wanted to cry, but the following day, which would have been Saturday, you got to be a big boy again, and you have to go play hockey because, of course, they had a very important game against Boston. And so I think that's what this team did. They took the time, took the weekend, sort of process everything. But like you said, 2 new acquisitions as well, and there's still a lot of games to be played left. So I want to talk about them in the bringing of David Kampf and Timothy Liljegren, 2 guys that Rasmus Sandin and Spencer Carbery seem to know very well from their days in Toronto. So, John, we'll start first with you. What do you think these 2 can bring to the table here in Washington?
Well, I think with Timothy Liljegren, you've got a guy who has some pretty good NHL chops and a guy who was logging a lot of hard minutes in San Jose, and a team until very recently, Vogues, was in the top 8. So getting a lot of those tough assignments against Western Conference teams. There's some big boys out there he's had to go up against this year. So I'm anxious to see what he can do. And then with David Kampf, a guy who's kind of in that Nick Dowd mold, played in Chicago with Dylan Strome. He's not unfamiliar with him either. So they both come in with some familiarity, which will be fun.
Yeah, I think Liljegren, 17th overall pick in the 2017 NHL draft, kind of grew up with Rasmus Sandin, came up to the Leafs at the same time. And as you mentioned, when Spencer Carbery was an assistant coach there in Toronto. And Liljegren's progress was interrupted by the pandemic, as it was by so many guys who were drafted around that time. But he's gradually picked up his game, added to it. He's become better at defending. That was, I think, the speed bump early in his career. He's always had some really good offensive chops, but now you see he's rounded his game to the point where he's playing 20 minutes a night. He's playing top 4 minutes. He's playing some on the PK, playing some on the power play. Like Carb said this morning, he's not the first guy over the boards in those situations, but he's useful in those regards. Now, look, he's not going to replace John Carlson. No one person that is here in this on this team is going to be capable of doing that. But he's right-handed. He can do some of those things. Everyone else is going to have to pitch in. David Camp, I thought, was terrific playing for Team Czechia in the recently completed Olympic Games in Milan. And so he's fresh, too, right? He's just got a little visa thing to get worked out. But to your point, Johnny, he's played almost 600 games in the National Hockey League. Terrific face-off guy, a guy who's capable of shutting down the opposition's top line. He's got a good body of work. The only difference between him, I should say the most significant difference between him and Nick Dowd is Dowd was right-handed, Camp is left-handed. Teams like to have that right-handed face-off guy. That's probably going to be Justin Sort of taking those key draws now for Washington on the right side.
And Katie, and I asked the coach this morning and talking with Spencer for the radio show tonight about the audition that these guys have, and that's really what this is. So you've got an expiring contract with Chychrun, but you'd like to think that hey, we need a right-handed D around here, and you may very well want that in the future. So it's going to be kind of exciting to see how both those guys develop.
For sure, and I know Carbery told us already, we will not see either making their Capitals debut here tonight. David Camp is still going through some immigration processes, getting that settled, and I know he said he wanted Liljegren to be able to settle in a little bit more. I know they had a team practice yesterday. They were out here from the morning skate as well. But, Vogues, you bring up a point in nobody on this team, no one person can replace what John Carlson brought to the table. But with that being said, this team has a really solid D-core. I spoke to Jakob Chychrun earlier today, which we will hear from him in just a few moments, but I specifically want to touch on Matt Roy as well. He's playing in his 500th NHL game tonight, and he's one of those guys, and he's so funny, that sneaky, funny personality. Coming Up Roy is what the team nicknamed him because he's not flashy, he doesn't take a lot of credit, but he deserves a lot of credit because he's the type of guy in this defensive core here that just does so many of the little things right, and when he goes unnoticed, that's when he is doing his job.
It's funny how his personality matches his game too, right? Really quiet, and you don't notice him, but man, he's terrific. I think, and I did a little bit of a deep dive just looking back at his debut, which was February 16th against Boston in Los Angeles. And for me, he's a remarkable player when you look at his path and his progress. He was drafted in the 7th round by the Los Angeles Kings. By the way, Nick Dowd was too, so kudos to their scouting department. But Matt Roy, kind of crazy that you see a defenseman drafted in the 7th round, called up, never goes back down. One call up, stays in the National Hockey League. He actually played more games in college for Michigan Tech in 3 years than he did in the American Hockey League. So kind of a quick study when you look at it that way. When he came up to Los Angeles, his first 10 games, they won one of those games, won 7-2. Roy played 11 minutes in his first game. By game 10, he was playing 20 minutes. So you could just see this guy's career climbing right from the get-go. And the other cool thing about him is he had the luxury of having either, until Saturday afternoon in Boston, either Drew Doughty or John Carlson as one of his teammates. So pretty remarkable thing for him to have those guys to learn at the hands of for 7+ years now, and hits game 500 tonight. Only a little more than 200 right-handed defensemen have played as many as 500 games in the National Hockey League, so he should be rightfully proud of that.
And one of the things, too, Katie, that in talking with Spencer Carbery, I hadn't fully considered when thinking about Matt Roy and the future here as we pivot away from John Carlson, there's a leadership role that he will grow into as well. So we're not just talking about the on-ice stuff, but for a guy that's near the end of his second season here has proved to be very valuable on the back end, the sneaky funny in the room and all of that. But all of that adds up to, listen, quiet leader. I mean, we had a guy named Brooks Orpik who was a lot like that around here too. If people spoke, everybody else in the room listened, maybe he starts to evolve into a little bit more of that leadership group role in the absence of number 74.
Certainly. Well, this D-core has been rock solid for the Capitals all season long. Jakob Chychrun, of course, had that beautiful primary assist in Boston as well. And so let's touch on that game quickly. And I know it's one that it was needed. It was a big 2 points for the Capitals, and ultimately you're disappointed coming out of that one with the loss. But you two there in person, what'd you see at TD Garden?
It was a tight game all the way through, I thought. And I think just getting to, at some point, hopefully, some bounces to go their way. That's a game that Logan Thompson played great, and you didn't want to waste it. You had the great effort from Chychrun, and we'll talk about that in a moment here. But I would have liked to just one bounce, just one goal that goes your way. They made Swayman work. I thought Jeremy Swayman was excellent in that game. I thought it was great. If you like goaltending, it was the right place to be. But obviously, it's tough not to get any points out of it.
It was a great goaltending matchup for sure. Both guys were on their games, made a lot of key saves at key moments. I thought the Caps, given their circumstances, playing for the first time without a couple of leadership voices in their room, were that's a tough situation to have to play a 12:30 game when you've just come off of 3 days, the first 3-day break that you've had outside of the Olympics or the holiday break since early December. So it was a little bit of I would say, an unfamiliar situation for them. Then you go shorthanded in the first minute of the game, and you wind up going shorthanded 6 times in the first 40 minutes of the game. And for me, that was what went wrong for them. They needed offense. They needed to be able to create offense, and all that time that they spent killing penalties really kind of cut into that, their ability, because you're taking guys out of their routine. Guys are missing shifts. The bench is getting a little unwieldy as far as who's on the ice when, and I felt like they needed to be able to get momentum in that game at some point, and they were on the verge of it. Katie, that play that you mentioned, Jakob Chychrun, just remarkable, the poise, the patience, the maturity to make that play. And you're hoping once that game gets tight, because it's a quick response. The goal came only a couple minutes after Boston took the lead, and you're hoping, okay, let's get the next one, and they just weren't able to do it.
Well, Jakob Chychrun has had an excellent season, career highs now in goals, assists, and points, and I had the chance to catch up with him in the locker room after morning skate today. Well, Jakob, thanks so much for joining the show today. Now that you all as a team have had a few days to process the departures of Nick Dowd and John Carlson, what's the mindset as far as a D-course stepping up when you lose a guy who logged minutes the way he did?
Yeah, it's going to be tough to fill Johnny's shoes. But I mean, life moves on, and we have to continue to find ways to win hockey games, and we're going to need, like you said, other guys to step up and play their best hockey moving down the stretch here.
And to that point, 2 new acquisitions as well, and Timothy Liljegren and David Camp. Have you had a chance to chat with them, get to know them at all yet?
I have, yeah. We had them at practice yesterday for the first time, which was nice, and I think 2 guys that work really hard, and we're excited to have them join our group and see what they can do for us. I think, like you said, there's going to be some more opportunity for us now with a couple of big pieces gone. So hopefully they can take advantage and help us win some games.
Looking back to Saturday against Boston, it seemed like a game that was hard fought. You guys were doing all the right things, maybe until the end kind of just slipped away. What were your overall takeaways of that one?
I thought it was really good, 5-on-5 play. I think obviously special teams let us down in a sense, and but overall we worked hard. I thought we played a good game. LT was unbelievable again for us, and I think losing the special teams battle is always tough, but overall I think our 5-on-5 play was really good. So continue to just carry that over into the night and try to stay out of the box a little bit.
And looking ahead to tonight, obviously that's 1 point, stay out of the box, but what else have you seen from Calgary, a team that you guys defeated just about 2 months ago, and we know down this stretch every 2 points still really matters? Yeah,
no doubt it does. They're a team that's coming off a big win versus Carolina. I mean, it's clearly a team that isn't giving in, and even considering where they're in the standings, so we need to not take them lightly, come out hard early and just try to impose our will and our style of play on them. Work hard and get on our forecheck and try to just dictate the play.
Jakob, appreciate your time as always. Thanks and good luck tonight.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate Jakob Chychrun joining us today ahead of an important matchup against Calgary. This team still believing that they can make playoffs. It's definitely going to be tough considering the games in hand, where they stand now, but they are certainly not out of this yet. By this point, you just have to take it game by game, 2 points by 2 points. And so tonight, it is the Calgary Flames, a team that is coming off of a big win over the Carolina Hurricanes, 5-4 Saturday night, a multi-goal effort by Joel Farabee as well, and a team that you could maybe say is in transition themselves, but riding that momentum from defeating a top Carolina team. What do you expect to see out of this Flames team tonight?
a lot of hard work. I think under Ryan Huska, and I think he's in his third year at the helm there, you're going to get a full effort from these guys. We've seen it every time. I think all the games, whether in Calgary or here against the Flames under his tenure, have been tight. And to your point, Katie, yeah, they're in a rebuild. I feel like it's been a while, too, since they've been in the playoffs, since they've been kind of a threatening team. But Craig Conroy seems to know what he's doing. I think he had a pretty solid deadline in getting the return that he got for Mackenzie Weegar and Nazem Kadri. He got back 3 seconds for Weegar, a first, a third, and got Ole Mata as well from Utah in the Weegar deal, first and a third for Kadri. So they're on their way. And they've got a couple of good pieces in that lineup already, too. So the key, I think, is going to be Logan Thompson, Johnny. He's been terrific, as you mentioned earlier, and he's that's his hometown team. I think he takes a lot of pride in playing against them. He played against them, I think it was his first game after signing the 6-year deal when we were on the long road trip last year. He really gets up for these games against the Flames.
No, there's no doubt. He's a lot of friends and family are going to be watching in Calgary tonight. We get a bonus Strome Bowl tonight. Yeah. We got a third Strome Bowl this year as Ryan traded to Calgary on Friday. It's going to be interesting to watch Calgary, Katie, not just because of what they did against Carolina, but they're going to go with a 5-forward power play set tonight because Victor Olofsson's going to make his debut after getting acquired by the Flames, and they are not going to have a D-man on the ice on their power play one. So different look for them. They're going to go with Devin Cooley in net tonight, who we saw a few weeks ago in the game in Calgary. He's going to get another chance to try and be the Caps. He lost to Logan Thompson in the game of the Saddle Dome back in January. So this is a team they're going to come in playing loose. They've got some new faces in there. Ryan Strome seems to be fitting in pretty well, and he's going to want that just for brotherly purposes tonight, just as Dylan is going to want it for Washington.
And I saw he already scored in a Calgary jersey already, so he's got to be fired up. I know that's a change. I can't say that that's a favorable weather change.
That's a culture shock from Southern California to Calgary is what that is, friends.
Yes, but I did see, we heard in the locker room today that Ryan was able to meet with Dylan and his family, wife, little nieces and all that. So it was obviously a fun homecoming for him, and I'm sure he's fired up for that matchup. But like you guys mentioned too, Logan Thompson, rock solid in that win against Calgary in January. He'll be on his toes again here tonight. But for more on tonight's matchup, we heard from head coach Spencer Carbery.
You guys are expected to play tonight?
Camp will not. Still going through immigration process. Lilgren will not. Just want to give him a couple extra days to get acclimated with the group. Let him watch a game at Capital One. Make sure he's dialed in systematically. And with where we're at in the year, thought it was a difficult spot to put him in the lineup, so we'll go.
What do you think the plan is for Miro in these last 18 months?
It's too hard to tell, Vogues. I mean, I would say to be determined. We'll see where we're at. We'll see how we play. We'll see how other individuals prefer we play. Do we want to get them into games consistently and get an opportunity to watch them play? Absolutely. So I would say that we want to accomplish that goal, but we also want to accomplish some other things as well that will determine whether we also accomplish that goal.
Anthony Beauvillier has been taking on a bigger role in the PK with Dowd gone and him kind of continuing to take on maybe bigger minutes there. What do you want to see from him then?
Just strong penalty kill minutes from him. I mean, I think we've tried to integrate him over the last, basically the whole year. He's worked with Scotty Allen on trying to get out and get opportunity on the penalty kill. I think he's done a pretty solid job. He's got to use feet. That's the key. He's not a big guy. He's not a long guy. So that's his strength on the penalty kill is going to be his brain and his quickness. And that's look for him to utilize there when it comes to killing off penalties.
What do you see from Liljegren in how his game has advanced from the time you had him into his development, his growth? He's upped his ice time. He's gotten short-handed time and power play time.
Yeah, I mean, I think his development, it's. I followed it very closely because Timothy Liljegren, I know it's kind of weird when you get into your second, third organization, you don't really have a reference point. He was a very, very blue chip prospect in Toronto that they spent a lot of time, and he was talked about extensively. And he did a good job. It took him a little bit longer. I think he spent a few, maybe 2-3 in Toronto. At that point, had a pretty good team, so he spent a little bit more time in the American League, which normally defensemen do, even if you're a first rounder. I think, and it got to a point where he was right there on the cusp of being an everyday in the lineup NHL player. And I think he's just continued to chip away at that. And did a good job in San Jose. They've got a lot of D-men out there, so they had an influx of them, and we were able to acquire them. And so as far as what he is as a D-man, I think he's just become a more well-rounded, puck-moving, good defender. Like you said, he can play in basically every situation. Is he a first over-the-boards penalty kill guy, a first over-the-boards power play guy? No, but he can do both. And I think that's maybe where he's really grown his game at the NHL level. And I think the other part, which, as you know, is such a big part of being a successful NHL player, is he now has a really good understanding of his role and what he has to do at a high level. You got to keep pucks out of your net. You got to get it out of your defensive zone, and you better be able to defend really, really well. And so having an appreciation for that and really good understanding, if he has to do that every single shift, I think he's got that under wraps.
That was Spencer Carbery meeting with the media after today's morning skate. And Vogue's off camera, you just made a great point as far as scheduling. I think we can all say, not just the players, us as broadcasters, we're hurting with the Capitals schedule this year. Of course, the condensed schedule with the Olympic break, but now you're going from 2 games in the past 8 days. This was the lightest past week that we have had in a long time. And now you're looking at a week, 4 games in the next 6 days, starting with Calgary tonight. But then it is a back-to-back Philadelphia and Buffalo before returning home to take on, yet again, the Boston Bruins back here on Saturday. So when you look at this, these are some important teams. You don't want to overlook anyone because, like we've said, by this point, every win matters. But now you're going on to Philadelphia, a team that has now caught you in the standings as well. And Buffalo, a second game of a back-to-back. What can we say about the season they are having? I don't know if you watched the game last night against Tampa, but I felt like I ran a marathon after just simply watching it. So they have done an incredible job this season and continue to surprise everyone.
Buffalo, I don't think I've ever seen a team turn on a dime after a change in the GM chair. I think, Johnny, we saw something here close to 20 years ago now when Bruce Boudreau took over. The Caps were dead last in the league, and they managed to sneak into the playoffs on the last game of the season. I thought that was a remarkable turnaround, but you understand that because that's a coach. That's a guy who's driving the bus from behind the bench, pulling the strings. What Buffalo has done is crazy because they really didn't change the personnel on the ice. They didn't change the coach. They changed the GM, and they've taken off. There's a lot of talent on that team, and it's been there. And for whatever reason, it was a little bit dormant, but it's not anymore. And you watch that game yesterday, and all you're thinking is, give me a playoff series between these two teams. And then Philadelphia, this is the third of the 4 games that the Caps have had to play against the Flyers since the beginning of February. And, Johnny, I think that loss right before the break in Philly, the Caps had some momentum going there. They were looking to win a 4th straight game in that game, if I remember right. And just a late penalty call that was out of character with everything else in the way that game had been called to that point. Yeah. Guys were really sour about how that game ended.
Very sour.
And you look back at that now, those are 2 really massive points. And look, the difference between where Washington is and where Washington wants to be is probably 3 wins. So if they had won 3 games earlier in the season, any 3, the 2 that they lost to Vancouver, maybe that one to Philly, I mean, maybe 74 might still be here, 26 might still be here, and yeah, it's a different race. But, you deal the cards that you're dealt with, and that's what the Caps have done. But these games are massive. All 4 of these games this week, probably none more so than the Boston game. So what you've got is You got a sandwich of home games wrapped around a midweek set of road back-to-backs in the middle.
And enjoy every sandwich.
Enjoy every sandwich, please
without
do.
Question.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, to me, that's a 4-point game, Katie. I mean, when you talk about where this is in the standings, Philadelphia is right with you. That's the way I think you've got to approach it. I got to give a little bit of a shout out to my one-time Miami University classmate in the Mass Comm school, Kevin Adams, because I hope that he gets the credit he deserves for being able to assemble the Buffalo Sabres in the way that he did. Kevin was on my first demo tape that I ever made because he was playing at Miami when I was broadcasting, but he's a Mass Comm major. I literally had 4 or 5 classes with him, and I hope that with what he's assembled there, I can't make sense of why a general manager change would have spurred this on, but it is the best 35-game stretch now in Sabres history, and that's what the Capitals are going to be facing on Thursday night. The Sabres are a wagon right now. Yeah. That's not going to be a lot of fun, and you've got to think that's going to be a Charlie Lindgren game with Logan probably going in Philadelphia if it stays to course with what we've seen. And then Boston, there's another 4-point game coming up, and this time you've got them in your building. You've got national TV again, and a 3 o'clock start. It's going to be a little bit out of rhythm, but, it's got to be a big week, right? I mean, you have to approach every game regardless of what the standings look like. You've got to go out and get the job, and you've got to try and, first of all, and as Spencer always says, look, he's not even worried about the Philadelphia game yet. He's 100% focused on what happens tonight against Calgary, and as soon as this one's over, then you start getting ready for Philadelphia, and you continue to do that, and you take every game as it counts, or it's every game that's in front of you, and you try and make the most of it.
And I think, that's a great point where Carbery he is one game at a time, not looking any farther past that. But going back to this most recent Boston game, 6 penalties taken by the Capitals. Yes, the PK did a good job killing off 5 of those, but Vogtsy made a good point when that just gets you. We're not playing even strength like that. It kills your momentum, things like that. And so whether it's specifically heading into tonight or really these 4 games as a whole, what is something for each of you you'd like to see out of this team in order to help pick up that win?
I'd like to see them play most of the game at 5-on-5. That's been their bread and butter all year. Their 5-on-5 goal differential is, I want to say, tied for 5th in the league. We know special teams have been a serious problem for this team, particularly the power play. The PK has picked itself up probably since sometime in December, has been a lot better, a lot more consistent. The power play, again, to go back to the last segment, if a couple of well-timed power play goals somewhere in those first 60 games could have made the difference and could have added those 5 or 6 points that we were talking about. And you'd still only be talking about maybe the team being 25th in the league in power play. It's probably the least efficient power play we've seen here in my time. I haven't taken a dive into the numbers, but
and really struggled at home.
Yeah, that too. And it used to be that was a bread and butter thing. You put the Caps on the power play in their building early in games, you're looking at a 3-1, 3-0 hole at the first intermission. That was from probably 2007 through 2022-23. That was generally the case. And it's just not that anymore. They've got to find the pieces, and one of those pieces is out the door, that the guy who's running things from up top. Chychrun's done a good job in that regard, but you got to find a half-wall guy that can deal like Nicky Backstrom can do, and that's not going to be easy. We got spoiled by having him, by having Ovechkin, by having Oshie in that bumper spot, and the guys who are out there are doing the best they can. But they just don't have the same skill set of the guys who came before them.
Gives me a great segue to Ryan Leonard, too, because whether it's at 5-on-5 or on the power play, he is one of those guys that we've seen on the half wall, and I really was encouraged in the Utah game seeing him be able to break through. I've talked with Spencer about this a lot on our pregame radio show about the work ethic is there. The kid works every single day to get better. He's out late at practice. He's able to really try to just fight through what is a tough situation. We forget a couple of things. One, he's 21 years old. Number two, it's the first time he's gone through an entire 82-game season, and you're getting now into the dog days of we still got games to go. If you won a national championship in college hockey, you were done 15, 20 games ago. So there's a lot in play. But for him, Katie, to be able to get that goal against Utah, he comes up with a point in the Boston game, too. I'd like to see down the stretch you fight through to get to the other side. You finish the season strong. And whether it be on the power play or whether it be at 5-on-5, finish the season strong and carry that forward into training camp and next season if need be.
Well, one final thought from each of you as we've now approached the Monday after the trade deadline. Friday was a hectic day for everybody. I was refreshing Twitter like crazy, but I think a lot of people would say, I don't know if boring was the word to describe this trade deadline, but maybe not as much crazy movement as past years. But again, for each of you, big picture news and notes around the NHL as a whole. Vogues, what was a trade that maybe, I don't know if surprise is the word, but one that caught your eye as we went on throughout the week?
There was a few of them, I would say, and some non-trades too. You heard a lot of names that were thrown around, and guys that you expected to possibly be on the move that stayed put. Vincent Trocheck, Robert Thomas come to mind, because those are a couple of players that I think the Caps might have had their eye on, or I would think could fit the bill of players that they would have some interest in, just given looking at their depth chart. But I thought the Connor Garland trade was interesting too, because here's a guy who's on a 6-year contract extension, which I think kicks in next year, if I'm not mistaken, and he gets moved to Columbus. And I think that's Columbus has also quietly put together a pretty solid array of talent, and Connor Garland's a nice little fit in there. A smaller guy who plays bigger than he is, got a good motor, just a good middle six guy that I think is a nice pickup for them. But I also saw a tweet from Alan Walsh last night saying that they're estimating the salary cap going up another $30 million in the next 3 years. So that's going to put a damper on the free agent market. Teams are going to be trying to sign their own guys. And I got to think that this is also going to magnify the importance of the draft even more than it is already. Teams should be beefing up their scouting departments if that's going to be the case, because not only drafting and developing are going to be important, but also decisions at that point. Once you do develop these players, which guys are we keeping? Which guys are we using as bait to get the people that we want from other teams? And we've seen, Johnny, over the years here, the Caps have been pretty good at identifying these high pedigree players. Probably started with players like T.J. Oshie and Brett Connolly, first-round draft picks that maybe for whatever reason didn't reach the expectations of the teams that drafted him. Make a phone call. Let's see if we can get this guy in here. Give him a role. Sometimes it just, in the National Hockey League, you get stuck with a label. It gets helped to be seen with a fresh set of eyes.
And I wonder, too, about Columbus, and given what the Capitals do and looking toward the future now and pivoting to what's next in trading John Carlson. I think Columbus had a whole lot to do with that because of the season they're having, because of what they've done under Rick Bowness. And now suddenly they look like they could be a playoff team. The one surprise for me at the trade deadline, and this is more along the lines of what didn't happen, I was waiting for the Minnesota Wild to do more. I thought after Quinn Hughes and this huge splash early, and I looked down the middle with the Wild, and I said, listen, Joel Eriksson is a heck of a player, but I don't know. I see him on a championship team as being like a 3C kind of guy. I like Ryan Hartman, but I don't know that you see enough down the middle. And keep in mind what Minnesota's got to contend with when they get to the playoffs. Hello, Dallas Stars, and then you got Colorado. If you want to get out of what I think the Central Division is a group of death. If you're going to get out of that, if you are going to be the team that's in the Western Conference Final, they made that huge splash. Quinn Hughes is going to be with Minnesota for a long time. I'm not just saying this as someone who grew up in the Twin Cities and the Minnesota sports curse is a real thing, but I really do feel as Minnesota, I don't know that there's enough there. We'll find out. They're a good team. Quinn Hughes has made them a very good team. They've got the goaltending. They ended up keeping their guys. We weren't sure both goalies were going to be standing in Minnesota when it was all done. Very interesting to watch when we get to the postseason what happens in the Central.
I thought they'd be in on Trocheck for sure.
He would have been an automatic for me. Absolutely, yes. Trocheck there.
Absolutely. Well, this is the most fun time of year to see which trades work out, which don't, who makes the playoffs, who doesn't. So I love March during hockey season, but thank you both so much for your wonderful insight today. Thank you all for tuning in at home to this very first edition of Rink Report Live. We'll talk to you next week.